Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another video for EVE Echoes. Today we're going to be continuing our mini-series of preparing for Tech Level 10. Now again, I know a lot of you aren't necessarily reaching Tech 10 anytime soon, but for those at the very top of the curve, Tech 10 is literally 2 weeks away, so it makes sense to have this discussion now about which of these ships we think is going to be best, which ones are worth building for industrials, which one people are going to start skilling into and looking to fly, etc. Now, we've already covered the battleships, so if you're interested in seeing those, do click on the link at the top of the screen now and in the description below and go and check that one out. Otherwise, today we're going to be looking at the medium ships, cruisers and battlecruisers. Now, this does mean this is going to be slightly longer than the battleship video, as there are 7 cruisers and battlecruisers per empire coming at Tech Level 10, 7 medium ships per empire, giving a total of 28 that we're going to cover very quickly in this video. So, I'm just going to say now, if you enjoy this, let me know by hitting like, please subscribe to the channel, it really does help things out, helps you keep notified as well if you ding that bell and select all notifications, that way you never miss a video, and if you do really like my content, consider supporting it either via Patreon or by checking out our Redbubble merchandise store. That said though, let's jump right in to talking about the medium ships coming at Tech Level 10. If you've watched one of these videos before, you'll know I like to start with the Amarr Empire, then work my way counterclockwise through the other empires, saving the best for last with the Minmatar Republic. If there is a particular empire you want to check out more than the others, do check the timestamps in the description below to jump ahead to that particular thing. Otherwise, let's jump straight in with the Amarr Empire, and we're going to start with cruisers and then work our way up. Now the first one to look at here is the Omen 2, and this is quite, I'm very excited about this one being added, because we had nothing in the Omen line since the Omen Navy issue here at Tech Level 6, and it is a big difference between the two. Not only are you getting the 3rd rig slots on both of those, you're also getting a 5th low slot, which adds a lot of additional tank or things like weapon upgrade modules, that kind of thing, into those low slots. On top of this as well, we're getting a damage control activation time addition here as a roll bonus, which is minor but really quite nice. It makes these a very nice attack. An attack cruiser. That additional 5th low slot now put a damage control in there. You get 18 seconds of DCU when you activate it, meaning excellent for PvP. You can jump in on someone and start kicking out all the pain without worrying about too much what's coming back. Beyond that, you can see that the capacitor need has dropped by an additional 2% per level. That's obviously 10% at full training, which is a lot less capacitor requirement, which is really nice if you're using lasers. Obviously, Amarr ships have a lot bigger capacitor banks than most others, but that's because they use lasers, which chew a lot of capacitor per activation. And considering there is a 6% per level medium laser activation time reduction here on the Omen 2, it is going to be firing those lasers fairly frequently. Like, it is going to be rattling those things off at an insane pace. It's not going to be so much a flashlight show as it is going to be a full-on disco, which is pretty cool. Just be aware, strobe lighting effects. But yeah, 3% medium laser activation now becoming 6% laser activation. That's rather than a 15% reduction, that's now a 30% reduction. That is huge. Now, yeah, we still have the inertia modifier reduction from Advanced Cruiser Command, but we do lose the scan resolution and sensor strength as is part of the Navy issue hulls. We get a lot more additional defense, a significantly faster flight velocity, better power grid by quite a margin, good capacitor banks, slightly larger cargo hold, and a slightly smaller source radius. For me, the Omen 2 is going to be one of those popular ships. I think a lot of people are going to jump back into one of these just because it brings back memories of flying the Omen previous to it. We then have the Mala Interdictor. Now, this is an interesting one for me. It's nice to see that this is coming back in here. I mean, we've had the Mala 2 Guardian, we're now getting the Mala Interdictor here right at the top. It's nice to see this on top of the other interdictors that we've had, like the Arbitrator Interdictor. So if you are into your laser interdictors, I think this could be an interesting one going forward. That said, I think the big advantage of the Mala Interdictor is just straight up its heavy defense. This thing has a lot of additional tank with it, that armor resistance in there as well, extending the warp disruption field effective range. There's just a lot on here, an overall defense there of nearly 1600 on paper to start with. It also gets a decent amount of medium laser damage and a reduction to medium laser capacitor need, but with only 3 high slots, don't expect too much in the way of combat potential. This is mainly a fleet issue ship that is going to be there in PvP, going to be very useful for things like gate camps and just general fleet engagements, where you can lock your opponent down, stop them escaping, and you yourself can take an absolute beating before being destroyed. In fact, you'll probably survive quite a long time with this thing. Speaking of surviving, we then have the Augurer 2, which if I add this to comparisons, you'll see, compared to the previous Augur, which was at tech level 7 down here, it's literally a straight up upgrade. Everything about this is better. You've got more high slots, more mid slots, more low slots. You're getting better stats as we come further down. There we are, remote armor repair activation time is reduced now to 7.5 rather than just 5%. Otherwise pretty much similar across the board. Better defense, better flight speed. If you're using the Augurer as an armor tanking logistics vessel, then the Augurer 2 suddenly is just a flat out better version. That said, I don't think armor tanking logistics is particularly popular. It's one of those things that once you've built it, it tends to stick around for quite a while. I don't think these are going to be overly popular, just because armor tanking logistics themselves aren't popular, and they're not going to need replacing all that much. There'll be an initial burst of people building these for their particular fleets, and then that's it, they're done. However, we then come to the Arbitrator 3 Covert Ops, and oh my absolute goodness, this thing is a beast. So if we compare this to the Arbitrator 2 Covert Ops, you'll see that the fitting profile is pretty similar here across the board. In fact, it's exactly the same. We still get that same cloaking device lock delay. The tracking disruptor strength has now increased, so it's gone from 7.5% per level to 10%. Signature radius is there, but we're getting additional drone DPS on here. It's 5% additional per level, 25% additional overall. It is a big increase. Now this does prove a problem for me. I don't mind having an Arbitrator Covert Ops and an Arbitrator 2 Covert Ops, because one of them is the expensive one that you will use in prime situations, the other is a cheap one that is almost disposable for things like fleet PvP, etc. Once you have a 3 though, the 2 just becomes useless, because the 3 is the expensive one that you're going to use for like all your main stuff like ratting or going on roams, etc., whereas the Arbitrator Covert Ops still remains the cheap option. The Arbitrator 2 Covert Ops, it's more expensive than the 1, but it's not as good as the 3, so it kind of sits in this middle point, and I don't think it'll get much use. That said, I think the Arbitrator 3 Covert Ops in itself is going to be an incredibly popular cruiser. I know the Arbitrator Covert Ops line are very popular in general. This one, the statistics that it has there are just absolute beast mode. Surprisingly high defense for a cruiser of this size, very low signature radius for a cruiser of this size, decent mass, decent inertia. It is fast for a cruiser, it's nimble, it's small, it's got good tank, and it's going to kick out an absolute insane amount of DPS whilst being able to fit a Covert Ops cloak as well. Right, so let's move now on to the Battlecruisers, and we'll start with the Harbinger. Now, the Harbinger line of ships for Battlecruisers aren't as popular as I think they ought to be. I think that, like, the Hurricane is a very popular ship, and you see a lot of the Amarr, like, Oracles and Prophecies, but you don't see much in the way of the Harbinger line, which is kind of a shame. They're very powerful laser boats that are incredibly good at ripping holes in enemy fleets, and the Harbinger Guardian, I think, is going to sort of... I'm lying through my teeth here. I want to say the Harbinger Guardian is going to change the game for things, because it's a big, massive, tanky ship. It's not. It's not. Armor links, as everyone knows, are pretty much broken in EVE Echoes at the moment. They did fix them and get them working the way that they wanted them to. However, the way they wanted them to work just doesn't do what it needs to. Armor links are not worth it, which sadly means that's all we're really going to spend time here on the Harbinger Guardian. It doesn't have enough high slots to be anything useful for solo use, and armor linking is just not great in fleet use either, so we can move on from that one. And we come to the Oracle 3. Now again, the Oracle 3 is the Oracle and the Oracle 2 are very popular battle cruisers, with good reason. Those lasers pack an intense punch, and if you go for a sniping Oracle fit, those beam lasers pack a serious punch from a quite considerable range. Now the Oracle 3 suffers from that same problem as we mentioned earlier with the Arbitrator 3 Covert Ops, in that it's a 3 model, which means the Oracle will still be a cheap one for use in fleet PvP, whereas the Oracle 3 becomes your bling option, therefore the Oracle 2 just falls out of use in the middle. But hey, it is a powerful ship, and I reckon this is going to be very popular. I don't think it's going to be the most popular of the medium ships available at tech level 10, but I think it is going to be one that you see fairly frequently, especially for solo PvEers and PvPers doing things like low-sec encounters, because this thing, as I said, packs an absolute wallop, has incredible sniping capabilities if you're going for the beam lasers, and if you go for pulse lasers, becomes a veritable threat in PvP. Finally then, for the Amarr ships, we come to the Prophecy 2 Command, and oh boy, I think this is going to be one of the most popular Tech 10 battlecruisers out there. Of course, everyone loves the golden space turkey, so having the slightly sunburned grey space turkey is going to be even more popular, especially since this thing not only has additional drone DPS. If you actually have a look at it, we've now got 50% drone DPS over the original Prophecy's 30% drone DPS. We've got one fewer drone launching tube, but off the top of my head, I think that actually now works out better. The additional 50%, the 50% rather than being 30%, makes up for that, meaning the Prophecy 2 command is a very powerful drone ship in general. You get an absolutely massive 25km drone control range added on there, plus we're getting bonuses here to both the Armoured Command Burst, the Skirmish Command Burst, and armor resistance there as well, meaning if you fit an armored command burst to this, your armor tank is going to be absolutely insane. This is going to be an excellent solo PvE and PvP platform, and it's going to be heavily wanted in fleets as well. Taking one of these into a Nihilist dead space, for example, having that those command bursts have that additional range, plus your drones being able to actually go out and, you know, do what they want to do and hit their targets, is going to be a very popular ship. Everyone loves the Amarrian Space Turkey. The Prophecy 2 command, I think, is the best version of it. Moving on then to the Caldari State, the first cruiser I want to have a look at here is the Caracal 2, which I think is going to be an incredibly popular option. Do you remember when every ship that you ever saw in high-sec and low-sec was a Caracal Navy issue? Well, there was a good reason for that, and missiles versatility coupled with a very cheap and effective hull made the Caracal Navy issue an absolute beast. Unfortunately, something that the Caracal sniper didn't really capitalise on by not adding all that much extra. The additional rig slots just didn't do much overall compared to the loss of some of the other stats, plus the fact that the sniper mode was absolutely worthless for all it matters, means that the Caracal Navy issue is kind of the last time we really saw much in the way of Caracals flying around, which is a shame. The Caracal Navy issue is actually a surprisingly good ship for solo PvP if you want to go on a roam. It's cheap, it's powerful, it's versatile, it can do an awful lot with it. But now at tech level 10, we're getting the Caracal 2, which adds that 5th low slot for additional tank or weapon upgrades, probably the damage control activation time there in the stats, plus we're getting those 3rd rig slots again. So you're getting additional damage or whatever the heck you want from the rigs, plus you're getting the damage control activation time. This is one of those times when I actually would fit one of these, because I think the Caracal 2 is going to make an absolutely beastie PvP roamer vessel. I'd fit some rapid missile launchers onto this, and interceptors are just going to melt in front of you, and oh look, there's 3 or 4 interceptors coming at me. I can't kill all of them. Well, yeah, you just pop the damage control control, you've got 18 seconds then of taking absolutely no damage at all while you rip apart each of those interceptors one by one. I'm terrified for this. I think that's going to be a really fun ship. Otherwise, you're seeing there, you've still got that additional 5% medium missile torpedo velocity, adding additional range to your missiles, but you're going from a 2% reduction to the activation time to a 6% reduction to the activation time. So that's a 30% up from a 10% reduction, so that's huge. That means your missiles are going to be firing a lot faster for a lot more damage. Yeah, we do lose the scan resolution and the sensor strength, not that the sensor strength does anything, and we still have the flight velocity bonus there, but we do lose that scan resolution, which isn't quite picked up for in the stats of the Caracal 2. If we go into that and have a look at it in detail, you see the Caracal 2 does have a better scan resolution than the Caracal Navy issue, but not as much as with the full 25% extra. Otherwise though, a lot of additional defense, it's notably faster, we've got better capacitor and power grid, notably better power grid, like crikey, that's huge. A decent cargo hold capacity, and a small enough source radius that you might actually get notified if someone is scanning you down in solo PvP, but quite frankly, as I said, this is going to be an excellent roaming ship, and I think it's going to be popular just for a lot of people reliving the glory days of flying a Caracal. Then we move on to the Osprey. Now the Osprey 2 is going to be an exceptionally potent vessel, I feel. This is going to be one of those that you'll see an awful lot of. It's a dedicated logistics cruiser. It has some absolutely insane logistics bonuses here. You're getting faster shield boosters, you're getting lower capacitor requirements with considerable range to them, and good capacitor transmitter optimal range and all that as well. But the big point is actually when we start looking at things like the capacitor bank and its recharge time. This is a big capacitor. It has a good, hefty recharge, plus we're getting all of those bonuses, which means in Nihilist Dead Space, where you are going to be suffering those penalties to your capacitor recharge, the Osprey 2 is going to be incredibly potent. It's a straight-up logistics vessel, and it's going to be the top logistics vessel for Caldari Cruisers. I honestly think that this and the Scythe are going to be exceptionally popular ships for any logistics pilots. That said, they are logistics vessels, so if you are a shipbuilder focused on cruisers, you're probably not going to get many sales out of one of these. They're the kind of ship that once it's built once or twice, that's kind of it. Once someone has one of them, they tend to keep them alive because it's mainly just used in fleets, so they don't need replacing all that often. Good for getting in there early with, but not much use after that. Then we have the Moa Interdictor, and I genuinely think this is going to be one of the most popular interdiction vessels out there, because this thing has tank for absolute days. 14,715, of which 5,297 straight away is in the shields, plus you're getting additional shield resistance there from its skill bonuses, good medium railgun damage, medium railgun accuracy fall off. It's got everything, the Moa Interdictor. It's a Moa. Moas are always going to be a popular vessel anyway, being an interdictor, being one of the heavy interdictors, and having just the insane amount of tank that this thing can have, I think is going to make it very popular. Again, for fleet use, because the 3 high slots mean it's not really got enough damage to actually kick out for anything really solo use, but still good fun. Have one of these, start a gate camp with a friend, and if anyone decides that actually I want to take the interdictor out first, good luck to them, they probably won't manage it. Then we come to the Blackbird 3 Covert Ops, and this is where I think things start to fall apart a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong, I quite like the Blackbird. I think they're a cool looking ship. I love the way they fold up when they go into warp. It reminds me a little bit of a crab doing a sidestep. It's awesome. And give it the Guristas veteran skin, and it just becomes even more awesome. But whilst this is a direct upgrade over the Blackbird and the Blackbird 2 Covert Ops, thus causing that same issue that the Blackbird 2 Covert Ops is just going to drop off the radar completely, because if you want a cheap one, you've got the Blackbird Covert Ops. If you want the bling one, you've got the Blackbird 3 Covert Ops. Where does the Blackbird 2 Covert Ops fall in? It just doesn't. You go for one or the other, you don't ever go for that middle ground, really. The problem with the Blackbird 3 Covert Ops is that the abilities that it has here just are not the equivalent of the Bellicose 3 Covert Ops. So if you're wanting to use a Covert Ops missile cruiser, the Bellicose 3 Covert Ops is just flat out better than the Blackbird, simply because, well, sensor strength does nothing. If sensor strength actually did something for the Blackbird 3 Covert Ops, then the fact that it's got reduced missile torpedo damage comparatively might be interesting. The only time I can really see a Blackbird 3 Covert Ops getting use, again, is as a dedicated one-off in a fleet for that guidance disruption strength bonus. I think if you're doing a Covert Ops fleet, and you want a ship that's going to have a guidance disruptor attached to it, then yeah, the Blackbird 3 Covert Ops is the best option for that, but I would just say that's a pretty niche role. It's good in that niche, but overall, it's got just outshined by the Bellicose. Anyway, let's move on to the Battlecruisers, starting off with the Drake Guardian. Now, everyone loves a Drake. These are some of the most popular battlecruisers in the game. The Drake Guardian, I think, is going to be another very popular ship, again, for fleet use, because not only does it start off with a massive shield bear of 16,185, it gets an additional 25% if you have advanced battlecruiser defense upgrade trained up to maximum, which, in fairness, if you're a battlecruiser pilot, you probably do anyway. If you're flying a standard Drake, chances are you have enough to, to use this. Now, what I'm essentially getting at here then is that the loss of the additional high slots means that it's not as powerful as the Drake for solo use by any stretch, but it makes an excellent little ship for a Drake pilot to have sitting in their hangar in case someone fancies doing like a Nihilist Dead Space or going on a PvP roam or all this kind of thing. It's just one of those ships that's nice to have in your hangar if you're a Drake pilot. Being a Guardian ship that uses basically the exact same skills as the current Drake, excellent. I'm excited for that. I think that's going to be quite popular. Again, is it going to be breaking the bank and making market sales records? No, because it's a Guardian ship. But I do think they'll be very popular, and you'll see quite a lot of these in especially PvE fleets. Now, second up then, we have the Naga 3. Again, this suffers the exact same problems with everything else that has a 3, in that it just outright replaces the 2. Because the Naga is still the cheapest one, the Naga 3 is now the bling one with the absolutely amazing stats, and it is amazing. Let's not mince our words here. We're getting 30% large railgun damage and 25% large railgun optimal range. Having a small pack of these at the end of the battlefield, you can kick out insane damage, insane alpha strike over an absolutely exceptional range with large rifled railguns. 25% additional optimal range to those large rifled railguns. That said though, that additional optimal range does also help you out if you want to go brawling with snub-nosed railguns here. It is going to be able to actually do that surprisingly well, especially since it has 7 high slots. You've got a battlecruiser here that could fit 7 large snub-nosed railguns with additional 25% optimal range and 30% additional damage. That's terrifying. Then the reduction to the signature radius and the flight velocity. I think the Naga 3 is going to be a very popular ship. It's tanky, it's fairly fast for a Caldari battlecruiser of this size, and it's good enough with those abilities there that you can either snipe with it or you can brawl with it. I genuinely think that there's a lot of versatility there in the Naga 3, and it will just outright replace the Naga 2. There's no two ways about it. Finally then, we come to the Ferox 2 Command, which is, at the end of days, the easiest way to say this, the best version of the Ferox out there. If you enjoyed the Ferox or the Ferox Command, you are going to love the Ferox 2 Command. This is by far one of the, well, it is going to be one of the best brawling railgun ships out there. Although I say brawling, it's actually arguably better, I would suggest, at possibly using the rifled railguns, but again, you do have the option there of which way you go about it. The fact that you've got the roll bonus to optimal range, plus you've got the additional advanced battlecruiser command bonus giving you 10% per level, 50% there as well, means that again, snub-nosed are actually going to be useful here. The additional 25% accuracy fall off though just gives me a lot of additional range to sit at and just go absolutely crazy with that command burst effective as well, both the skirmish command and the shield command. That means that having one of these in a PvE fleet, using that shield command, sitting there at range, sniping away, is just going to be insane. But even in solo usage, having a shield command burst strength bonus with your own shield commands active, using the snub-nosed railguns there, to sort of, you know, just to get in there and brawl with opponents, I think is going to be really popular. I think the Ferox, again, it's one of those battle cruisers, you don't see as many of them, or at least I don't. I think that, you know, the battlecruiser field is very much dominated with things like the Oracle, the Myrmidon, the Naga, definitely the Prophecy, the Hurricane's very popular. You just don't see as many Ferox. This, if you like your railguns, if you like your medium railguns, I think the Ferox 2 Command is going to be right up there as one of the best medium railgun ships out there. It's obviously very popular in the way that it looks as well. Get the Gurustus NCO or the Gurustus Veteran on that, and you have one incredibly powerful, badass looking ship. Speaking of railguns, let's have a look at the Gallente Federation's offerings. Now again, starting with the cruisers, I think we have one of the most popular cruiser hulls ever coming back at tech level 10. Right up there with the Caracal is the Vexor. So we have the Vexor 2 coming. Obviously we're going to compare this to the Vexor Navy issue, simply because the Vexor Sniper was, I think, in a word, disappointing. Sniper mode did absolutely nothing. The Sniper version lost a lot of stats that the Vexor Navy issue had, and only basically gained additional rig slots. It meant that on paper the Sniper was technically better, but not by much, and definitely didn't seem to warrant the cost. You very rarely see a Vexor Sniper, you still see people using Vexor Navy issues. So once we hit the Vexor 2 at tech level 10, oh boy, things go absolutely crazy for this. Most of the fitting profile is the same. Again, we get that additional third rig for both combat and for engineering, but we're also getting a 5th low slot and a roll bonus to damage control activation time. This, to me, again, signifies that the Vexor 2 is going to be an excellent vessel in PvP, because if someone turns their guns on you, you can get yourself 18 seconds of time where you can just rip them a new one without them doing basically anything back. Beyond this as well, we've still got 3 km drone command range bonus of 5% drone EHP, but our 12% drone DPS has gone up to 25% drone DPS bonus. That means rather than a straight up 60% increase, it is now a 125% increase to drone DPS, which is an insane increase on DPS, and I just think that the Vexor Navy issue has been one of those ridiculously popular ships. The Vexor 2 definitely lives up to that. Yeah, we lose our scan resolution again though. With the Vexor 2 having better scan resolution, it's really not much of a loss at all. We still get the reduction to inertia modifier, which really helps a ship like this out, both if you want to relocate as a sniper, or if you want to go in there with brawling of something like snub-nosed railguns or whatever weapon you fancy. I quite like to put medium autocannons onto a Vexor. In fairness, I know it's a little bit unusual, it looks a bit weird, but it works really, really well. Interestingly though, the stats at the bottom here, we do have a significantly increased overall defense. It is a faster ship. It's actually quite a fast cruiser at 262 meters per second. We get an excellent capacity, an excellent power grid output increase. We get better cargo hold, and we get a much smaller source radius. Weirdly though, the capacitors are smaller on the Vexor 2 than they were on the Vexor Navy issue. And don't get me wrong, the Vexor doesn't really need capacitor all that much. It's going to be armor tanks for the most part nowadays, now that armor tanking is a much better thing. And again, if you go for cannons in the top slots, you don't need, or missiles, you don't need to worry about capacitor usage there. So I don't see why it needs much capacitor, and I don't think that's going to cause it any problems. I think the Vexor 2 is going to be right up there as one of the most popular medium ships at tech level 10. Certainly right up there with the Prophecy, the Myrmidon, and the Caracal 2. That's my prediction at least. I love this hull to pieces, and I'm excited to see it return. We then have the Execra 2, and again I'm not going to spend too long on this because, simply put, it's an armor logistics vehicle. And I think, again, if you want armor logistics in your fleet because you've got some armor tanking stuff going on, then the Execra 2 is going to be a better option than the Execra. It's going to be one of those ships that, because it's used mainly in fleet PvP and fleet PvE, it doesn't tend to get targeted all that much, which means once the people who want armor tanking logistics have the Execra 2 or the Augurer 2, that's kind of it. They're not going to buy many of these. It's not going to be a big seller, but it's still a nice thing to have in your fleet. Then we come along to the Celestis 3 Covert Ops. Now the Celestis actually surprised me with how popular this hull has been. I still think it looks like a Dyson Hoover swallowed a banana, or, you know, mutated and morphed into one, got halfway through it. But let's be fair, they are powerful hulls. The fact that they get a bonus to turrets rather than, you know, any particular weapon system gives you a lot of versatility. That's bonuses to decomposers, railguns, lasers, or cannons. Whatever you want to fit there, it's going to get a bonus to it. It means that the Celestis line was actually a lot more popular than I was ever expecting it to be. That said, the Celestis 3 Covert Ops falls into the same hole as the other 3s, in that it just outright replaces the Celestis 2 Covert Ops, because the 2 now is not as good as the 3, but it's not as cheap as the 1 either, so you kind of are just going to go with the 1 if you want something cheap, and if you want something good, you're going to go with the 3. It is an awesome looking ship. It's got some really powerful stats to it there. I do think the 4 high slots, it's a little bit low perhaps, I don't know, maybe it needed a 5th high slot, but again, with the turret bonuses, people have surprised me constantly with the Celestis, and I think this is going to be one of those that's going to be really useful in PvP roams, and actually probably do pretty well in PvE too, considering how small a ship this is in regards to its signature radius. Its standard signature radius is pretty small, then it's getting additional reductions thanks to Advanced Cruiser Command. It's an interesting ship, and I think this is going to do really quite well. That then moves us on, finally then, to the Thorax Interdictor. Now again, this is a heavy interdictor. It's got very few high slots, so it's got not much in the way of damage, despite having some rather nice damage bonuses here. 5% medium railgun damage and 7.5% medium railgun tracking speed definitely suggests that we'd be using snub-nosed railguns there. But above that then, we've got that 5% additional armor onto an already very tanky armor ship, 4,388 plus an additional 25% on top of that, with a good amount of structure to back it up. Between the Thorax Interdictor and the Mala Interdictor, I think the Mala is probably going to pull ahead just because on paper it has slightly better stats and tank. I know the Thorax is an ever popular ship as well, and the fact that it can fit those warp disruption field generators and provide a very scary threat in a gate camp, I don't know. I think I'd like your opinions on that, guys. Let me know in the comment section which you think is going to be better, the Thorax Interdictor or the Mala Interdictor, and why. Let's move on then to the Battlecruisers. Now, starting off with the Talos 3, this of course is our attack battlecruiser, a la the Naga and the Oracle. Now, I love the skin on this. I love the fact that it's got these like banners draped off it as well. This is the thing you see for these Aliastra skins here for the Gallente Federation at tech level 10. Now, straight up, again, it is a big improvement over the Talos 2, which means the Talos 2 now just disappears from the game as far as it matters for anyone at tech level 10. The Talos is your cheap version, the Talos 3 is the expensive bling one, and it is a very powerful ship. I love the additional large railgun tracking speed bonus here, 25% additional large railgun tracking speed, alongside 30% large railgun damage, means this is going to be very powerful with large snub-nosed railguns. They've got good range and they're going to have fairly decent tracking now, with a low inertia modifier and a reduced signature radius as well, means this is going to be an excellent ship for brawling with, with, both for PvP and PvE. I'm looking forward to seeing this one on the field quite a lot. We then of course have the Brutix Guardian. I'm really excited actually seeing these Battlecruiser level Guardians, because they have insane amount of tanks. The trouble with the Brutix Guardian is that, again, being a Guardian ship, it loses all of its offensive capabilities, for the high slots being going all the way down to 4, even though it gets some nice bonuses down here. You'll see like the medium railgun damage, the medium railgun optimal range, etc. Very nice bonuses, just there aren't enough high slots to really make much use of them. Beyond that then, it becomes an Armor Link module ship, which again, Armor Links just are not particularly useful in EVE Echoes right now. They just don't really do much. You're better off with Shield Guardians rather than Armor Guardians, which means the Brutix Guardian, I feel, is just going to be consigned to obscurity. Cool looking ship, you're just never going to see it outside of a, collection. Finally then, for the Gallente ships, we have the Myrmidon 2 Command. Again, the Myrmidon, being a drone battlecruiser, is always going to be fairly popular. The Myrmidon 2 Command is the flat-out best version of the Myrmidon. It has more tank, more DPS, it's faster, it gets everything flat-out better than the Myrmidon Command, and better than the standard Myrmidon. And it is very powerful. You're getting that Armoured Command Burst Strength, and the Skirmish Command Burst Strength there as well, which means these are going to be very popular in fleets for being able to give you those bonuses. The fact that it then has a good armor repair efficiency bonus, plus a whopping 50% drone DPS with the additional drone EHP, makes this a very powerful ship for brawling. And I think in PvP, the Myrmidon 2 command actually probably pulls slightly ahead of the Prophecy 2 command, thanks to the drone EHP bonuses, and the fact that it's just got better armor repair efficiency, and can thus keep its armor reps working longer. Again, we have 5 low slots here, so we can comfortably fit 2 armor repairers onto that. I'm not going to say large, 2 armor repairers onto here. With that additional efficiency, it is going to be very tough to break that tank, as long as you can keep the capacitor up, which again, I don't think is going to be a problem with a drone ship. Just use missiles or cannons so that you're not using capacitor for your high slots, and it's going to do really well. I think the Myrmidon 2 command is probably actually slightly, in my opinion, better than the Prophecy 2 command. But again, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Time will tell. Finally then, we come to my personal favourite faction, the Minmatar Republic. There's no bias here, I swear. Let's start then with our friends, the Cruisers. And first up then, let's have a look at the Stabber 2, because this is frankly an insane little ship. If you've ever seen Vetemune in action, I'm giving him another shout out in another video, because oh boy, that man makes the Stabber fleet issue absolutely terrifying. I have seen him kill things with that I just, it's insane. It's insane. He's inspired videos from me in the past, and just, it's mad. I think the Stabber fleet issue is one of the most powerful cruisers out there for PvP. Definitely Vetemune makes it live up to that. So then we get the Stabber 2, which then gets an additional rig slot on each side for additional defense or additional DPS, etc. Or in Vet's case, that's going to be extra speed. I think he's going to be adding another auxiliary thruster to that side of things, plus an additional low slot, which again, with that damage control activation time bonus, is probably going to be a DCU, just to help keep it alive in like PvP. I think small fleet PvP or even solo PvP is going to be very popular here with the Stabber 2. It still gets that same 10% medium cannon accuracy fall off, which works really nicely for those autocannons, gives them additional autocannon, the accuracy fall off range to work with, because let's be fair, if you're using autocannons, you're probably sitting in the, well, you should be sitting in the accuracy fall off for the most part, and it just gives that a gentler slide, which is really nice. Plus, we're going from 3% medium cannon activation time to a 6% reduction to medium cannon activation time. Again, that's 15% reduction going up to 30% reduction, which means those medium autocannons are suddenly firing like miniguns. We still have the increase to the flight velocity, plus we do now lose the scan resolution and sensor strength, but again, the Stabber 2 does have a higher scan resolution than the Stabber fleet issue to begin with, so it's not really that much of a loss. The big changes come here in that the flight velocity goes up even higher to 294, making this one of the fastest, if not the fastest cruiser in the game. It does actually now outpace the Cinnabal, surprisingly. It has a smaller source radius than the Cinnabal, a smaller signature radius than the Cinnabal, and it is comparable, if not slightly better DPS, especially once nanocores are included for the Stabber 2. The Stabber 2 is now arguably the better version of the Cinnabal, which is really saying something. It has a very powerful capacitor bank, good power grid here, excellent power grid in fact. You're not going to struggle to fit much there, in fact you'll be able to oversize an awful lot. Decent enough cargo hold, but it's mainly that additional rig slot, the flight velocity, and the faster firing cannons. The Stabber 2 has just become the definitive cannon cruiser by an absolute mile. Like, the Stabber Fleet issue is one of those amazing PvP ships. The Stabber 2, I'm absolutely terrified. If I see someone land on grid with a Stabber 2 whilst I'm in anything smaller than a battlecruiser, I will be leaving that grid as quickly as possible. That is a terrifying anti-frigate, anti-destroyer platform there, and I will not be standing near it. Then we have the Scythe 2, and again there's not really much you can say about the Scythe 2. It's a logistics vessel, it's better than the Scythe, which means if you want a cruiser level logistics platform, the Scythe 2 is going to be the way to go, and considering logistics platforms tend to survive a long time, they don't tend to get destroyed all that easily, basically, once you've bought a Scythe 2, you don't really replace it. Keep your old Scythe as a backup, just on the off chance it happens, but I don't see the Scythe 2 selling all that much. I really like this ship. I actually prefer its stats to the Osprey, simply because it's a little bit faster and nimbler, and I like the fact that it's got the flat-out optimal range rather than the accuracy fall-off bonuses that the Osprey has. The Osprey, the fact that it's slower, means it gets a gentler decay in its shield booster accuracy fall-off, whereas the Scythe, being faster, just gets a flat-out bigger optimal range to work with, so the idea is you just whiz around and keep everyone in your optimal range. That said, how is it going to stand up against something like the Hurricane logistics? I think fairly well, because it's that little bit more nimble. It's able to move and relocate that little bit faster. I don't know. I think the Scythe is personally my logistics platform of choice then, at medium size. Then we have the Rupture Interdictor, and it's nice to see the Rupture come back. Unfortunately, it is an interdictor platform. When you look at this, you're sitting there saying, right, I want to gate camp, or I want to use fleet PvP with a heavy interdictor, doing the warp disruption field generator. I think the Rupture Interdictor is a great option for that. It's probably going to kick out a little bit more damage than the Moa Interdictor will do. Unfortunately, it just doesn't have quite the same tank. It's slightly faster, which means it can get that sphere where it needs to, so I don't know, it's kind of here and there. I think there are advantages to the Moa just being ridiculously tanky. If someone gets caught in a Moa Interdictor sphere, they're gonna try and, break through the Moa and just fail, whereas I think the Rupture is kind of the other way around. If someone decides that rather than try and destroy the ship to break the bubble, they're just going to try and race to the edge of the bubble, the Rupture Interdictor, being faster and more nimble than the Moa, means that they can keep that ship inside that bubble for longer. So it's kind of whichever way you like. And frankly, I love the look of the Rupture. I've described it before as a space pirate galleon, so anything that gets more of these onto the battlefield, I'm all for. Finally then, for cruisers, we come to the Bellicose 3 Covert Ops, and this is one that actually has me salivating. You may not be aware that my main character obviously is Frigate and Destroyer mainly. The aim originally was to have all Frigate and Destroyer relevant skills up to maximum, including all 6 of the different weapon systems. That said though, I kind of just went, I'm not enjoying railguns all that much, so I skilled out a lot of that, and I've actually put in a lot of cruiser skills to be flying Bellicose Covert Ops now, and that we have scanning, and I've been using those quite a lot as well, which is great fun. The Bellicose 3 Covert Ops is the definitive version of the Bellicose Covert Ops. It has absolutely insane bonuses. I'm very excited to get to fly one of these. It's actually one of the ships I'm looking forward to most once we hit Tech 10. Brilliant stats here across the board. It does completely negate the Bellicose 2 Covert Ops. The Bellicose Covert Ops is a powerful ship, for sure. It's a nice little one there. Then you've got the Bellicose 2, which is just better, and now the Bellicose 3, which is better than both of them. So the Bellicose 3 is the top, blingy, expensive one that does everything better than everything else, whereas the Bellicose is the cheap one, which means the Bellicose 2 Covert Ops kind of has no place anymore. Now the thing as well is the Bellicose Covert Ops compared to the Blackbird Covert Ops, you have a flat-out better ship here, I would argue. Certainly it's got better stats across the board, it's got better damage, better range. It's a smaller ship, it's faster. The fact that it's got slightly less tank doesn't really matter all that much when you take those other things into consideration. It then also gets target painter target effects, which means its missiles are actually even better. The Blackbird basically is all about screwing with the opponent, whereas the Bellicose Covert Ops line is all about making your missiles better and the rest of your fleet. And I just personally think that the Bellicose line just works better. Those bonuses work better in every way. They help you more, they help your fleet more, and then you've got better damage to make up for it. So the Blackburn I just don't think is as good as the Bellicose line, which means the Bellicose 3 Covent Ops becomes one of the absolute definitive missile platforms, right up there with the Caracal 2 at tech level 10. Let's move on then to the Battlecruisers, and continuing the line of missiles, we have the Cyclone 2 Command. Now the Cyclone, again, is a very popular missile platform. A lot of people ask, you know, which is better, the Cyclone or the Drake? The Drake tends to be the sort of, it's more damage and slightly lower tank overall when you work it all out with the different bonuses. The Cyclone 2 Command, though, is now your definitive missile battlecruiser, because the Drake at tech level 10 obviously is the Drake, I almost said Drake Defender, Drake Guardian, which means it loses a lot of the high slots, whereas here the Cyclone 2 Command still has all the high slots that you would expect from a Cyclone, plus it gets all the additional bonuses here, like the Shield and Skirmish Command Burst Strength, and the bonuses here to Missile Torpedo Activation Time, so they are launching faster. Plus, we've got that explosion velocity bonus there as well, which helps this apply its damage better to smaller targets. This means that you don't need to go for rapids so much anymore, you can stick with medium missiles. That explosion velocity bonus there really helps that apply to smaller ships like frigates and destroyers that might be moving slightly faster than you'd like them to otherwise. I think the Cyclone makes an excellent torpedo platform as well, so if you want to get right up in someone's grill and start hitting them with torpedoes into the face, the fact that it's got that shield booster amount, the explosion velocity increase, that kind of thing there, and the torpedo activation time, the fact that they're going to be firing those faster, you basically become a torpedo launching minigun, which is just great fun. I really like the Cyclone 2 Command. I think this is going to be a very, very popular battlecruiser at tech level 10. Then we come to the Hurricane Guardian, and again, this is one that personally excites me, because I have a character who is entirely skilled into the Hurricane. Like, literally every skill that character has is based on the Hurricane. I've got rid of any other skill that does not directly affect the Hurricane, other than, of course, Alliance and, you know, Corporation Command, because I do still need those, apparently. But the Hurricane Guardian now is going to give me some versatility. I've already got all of the stats I need for it, because we're using Advanced Battlecruiser Defense Upgrade and Advanced Battlecruiser Command, which, of course, any Battlecruiser pilot is going to have anyway. It just means that now I can be using the Hurricane if I want to be kicking out some damage. I then have the Hurricane Logistics if I want to be a healer, and I now have the Hurricane Guardian if I fancy sitting in the middle of the fleet and being a Guardian. I can now fit into whatever role my fleet needs me to with that character. It's an amazingly powerful Guardian as well. Like, if you have a look at the attributes here, we've got a very powerful shield onto that, plus it's fast enough to be able to relocate nice and quickly, and thus keep the fleet moving, especially for the Nihilist dead space where obviously you cannot warp between anywhere and you need to be able to move between those gates. Having the Hurricane Guardian, I think, actually works really, really nicely at being able to maneuver your entire fleet from gate to gate whilst still blowing everything else up. On top of that, the shield booster amount there is a really nice skill that's going to help you keep alive even whilst other logistics are working on you. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm biased and the Hurricane is by far my favourite hull in the entire game. Yes, despite being known for being a frigate and destroyer main, the Hurricane is still my favourite hull. Maybe it's me being biased on that, but the Hurricane Guardian, I think, is going to be probably one of the best Guardian ships in the game at tech level 10. Finally then, we come to the Tornado 3, and this badass looking black croissant of death, just, again, it's an awesome looking ship. It is better than the Tornado 2 in every single way, which means of course it's better than the Tornado in every single way. So if you like the Tornado line of ships, this is going to be an excellent option for you. The downside is that your Tornado 2 now pretty much becomes useless. The Tornado, again, the basic Tornado, is now your throwaway cheap one. The Tornado 3 is the expensive bling one. How many times do I have to say this in one video? The Tornado 2 now falls into a middle ground where it just does nothing particularly exciting on either end of the spectrum. It's not the cheapest, but it's also not the best. So, what do we actually get with this? Well, we get a large cannon activation time reduction and a large cannon accuracy fall off, which actually imply that you should be using autocannons with this. Large autocannons with the Tornado 3 make this a terrifying brawler. The fact the activation time means they're going to be firing at a ridiculously fast rate, and the accuracy fall-off bonus tends to insinuate we're looking at autocannons as well. Tornado 3 is going to be an excellent brawler. That said, are you still able to fit it with large strike cannons? Absolutely. and they're going to do really well. That additional accuracy fall-off does still help the strike cannons out an awful lot, plus the activation time means they're going to be firing faster, which is a flat DPS increase. We've got a decent flight velocity here, and a good scan resolution bonus as well, which is going to help you lock onto smaller targets, and either keep on them if you're using the autocannons, or keep at range if you're using strike cannons. I think the Tornado 3 100% is going to be an excellent platform for dedicated large cannon pilots to be flying. It's something that goes alongside the Tempest and the Tempest Striker and the Maelstrom, etc., those cannon battleships, but you're going to be faster than them, but you're not going to have as much tank, and the skills are cheap. I can never quite decide if I want to skill a character into, like, the Tornado and then just leave it at the Tornado, or if I want to go into the Tempest and things as well, because there's so much crossover there with the skills. But obviously the Battlecruiser skills, the named Battlecruiser skills, are cheaper than named Battleship skills, like Battlecruiser Command, Battlecruiser Defense, compared to Battleship Command and Battleship Engineering, that kind of thing. So it's an easier platform to get into if you like those large cannons, and quite frankly, with 6% reduction to large cannon activation time and 5% additional cannon accuracy fall-off, having those large auto cannons on this thing, who doesn't love cannons at that point? Like, you're just punching craters into the opponent's ships. I don't know, I'm looking forward to that. For me, I'm still very excited about the Stabber 2, terrified of that in fact, whilst excited about the Bellicose 3 Covert Ops and the Hurricane Guardian. I think the Minmatar ships, I've got a lot personally here in the mediums to look forward to once I hit tech level 10. But those are just my thoughts and opinions. You obviously have your own. You've got ships that you're excited to be looking out for, ones that you're going to be terrified of facing, whereas I'm terrified of the Stabber 2, maybe you're terrified of facing some of the others. What are you looking forward to flying? What are you looking forward to building? What do you think is going to sell most? Let me know in the comment section down below. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Otherwise, folks, thank you for watching this right the way to the end. Do stay tuned and subscribed, because there is going to be the Frigate and Destroyer one still on the way to come. Otherwise, happy sailing, and see you in New Eden!